"Sir, you can take my umbrella. Mama doesn't need it anymore." The little girl's voice trembled through the storm, but it cut like lightning through the noise of the rain. Ethan Walker blinked. His vision was hazy, the world spinning in shades of gray and red. The rain was freezing, needling his skin. He sat slumped on a park bench in Central Park, his shirt clinging to his chest, his lips pale. His breaths came short, ragged, each one scraping his throat like glass. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. Then, through the pounding rain, her tiny figure came into focus. A girl, no more than 6, standing in front of him with a red umbrella trembling in her small hands. "Sir, please," she said again, her voice louder this time. "Take it before you die." The last word hit him hard. He tried to lift his head, but the world tilted. "What? What did you say?" "Before you die," she repeated simply, water dripping from her hair. "You're shaking too much. My mama used to shake like that before she stopped herself, biting her lip." Ethan groaned, gripping the bench. The pain in his chest was sharp, his pulse erratic. He had been sitting there for hours, lost in his own misery. The night before, he'd argued with his ex-wife another brutal call about her moving to California with the last pieces of his broken family. Then came the boardroom fight, the stock crash, the emptiness that followed him like a shadow. So he'd walked, just walked until his body gave up. Now, his body was rebelling. His vision blurred again. A wave of nausea hit, followed by the unmistakable tremor in his hands. Then his muscles locked. His jaw clenched. His body jerked violently. Once. Twice. The girl gasped. "Mr. Hay, stop that!" Ethan fell sideways off the bench, hitting the wet ground hard. His body convulsed again, the cold seizing every nerve. Foam gathered at the corner of his mouth. His head struck the ground, and his eyes rolled back. "Don't die," the girl screamed, her voice cutting through the rain. She dropped the umbrella, splashing through puddles to reach him. "Please don't die." She shook his arm. His body twitched once more, then went still. "Mister, wake up," she cried. Her hands were shaking. She pressed her ear to his chest like she had seen in movies. Come on, come on." There was a heartbeat, weak, erratic, but there. "Okay," she whispered, panting. "Mama said when someone's hurt, you keep them warm." She yanked off her tiny backpack, pulling out a thin blanket that was barely bigger than a towel. She laid it over his chest and arms, her hands trembling as she smoothed it down. "Please don't die, okay? You look rich. Rich people don't die in the rain." "Nothing." Desperate, she slapped his cheek lightly. "Hey, wake up!" His eyelids fluttered. He gasped once, violently, choking on air. "Good," she said, relief flooding her voice. "That's good. Breathe. Come on." He coughed, hard, rainwater spilling from his mouth. Then he groaned, turning his head slightly toward her. His voice came out in a whisper, barely audible. "Where am I?" "In the park," she said. "You were shaking bad. I thought you were dying." He tried to sit up, but his body refused. His hand slipped into the mud, and he looked at her, this tiny stranger with a soaked dress and eyes too big for her face. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered weakly. She crossed her arms, defiant. "Neither should you." That startled him. He coughed again, clutching his side. "You're smart for your age." Mama said smart don't help if nobody listens. He almost smiled despite the pain. "She's right. I know." She looked around nervously. "There's nobody else here. You need a doctor." He shook his head, teeth chattering. "No hospital." "Why not?" she demanded. He hesitated. "Because they'll call the press. I can't." "The what?" she interrupted. "You mean those people with cameras?" "Yes." She frowned. "You care about cameras, but you're dying?" He couldn't answer. She huffed, glaring down at him. "That's stupid." He laughed weakly, a sound more like a cough. "You're not wrong." The rain picked up again, pelting her face. She bent down, grabbing the umbrella and forcing it open. The fabric sagged, water leaking through the holes, but she held it over him anyway. "Here," she said firmly. Mama's not gonna need it. You do. He blinked, water streaming down his face. What? Did you just say? Mama doesn't need it anymore, she said simply. She's in heaven. Something in him cracked at those words. If this story moved you, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart. He stared at her, at the way she stood there trembling but unafraid, holding that broken red umbrella like a shield. The contrast was unbearable, her small kindness against the endless gray of his world. His chest tightened again. A sharp pain radiated through his ribs. He gasped, clutching at his side. Damn it. Mister, she knelt beside him. Don't move. I saw on TV you gotta stay still. I'm fine, he lied. No, you're not, she shot back. You sound like my mama before she... Her voice caught. She swallowed hard. You can't die too. Ethan's eyes rolled back slightly, another wave of pain coursing through him. The girl panicked, shaking him harder. Hey, mister, look at me. He forced his gaze on her, his breath shallow. Anna, her head snapped up. How do you know my name? You told me, he said faintly. Didn't you? She shook her head. No. His lips trembled. Then maybe... I just guessed right. She blinked in confusion, but before she could reply, he slumped again, body limp. No, she screamed. She dropped the umbrella, slapped his cheek again. You don't get to die now. You hear me? You don't get to. A few seconds passed. Then, finally, a low groan escaped his throat. His fingers twitched. Good, she breathed, tears mixing with the rain. You scared me. He opened his eyes halfway. You didn't leave. She wiped her nose on her sleeve. You looked lonely. He gave the faintest smile. You shouldn't. Stay with strangers. You're not a stranger anymore, she said. You're the man I saved. He wanted to laugh, but it came out as a wheeze. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. The city lights flickered through the trees, and there, under a broken red umbrella, a billionaire lay half-conscious beside a girl who had nothing but refused to walk away. Anna, he whispered, the name tasting like a prayer. Let's get out of the rain. You can't walk, she said. Then help me try. She frowned, then nodded firmly. Okay, but if you die, I'm gonna be really mad. He almost smiled again. Deal. With effort. He pushed himself upright, one hand gripping the bench for balance. She steadied him with both arms, tiny but strong. They staggered toward the faint glow of a diner across the street, the storm raging around them. Ethan's heart pounded erratically, but he kept moving. Each step was agony. Each breath burned. Yet somehow, guided by that little hand in his, he felt something he hadn't felt in years' hope. When they reached the diner door, he leaned against the glass, breathless. The waitress inside turned at the sight, a soaked billionaire and a little black girl clutching a tattered umbrella. She rushed to open the door. Lord, what happened to you? Before Ethan could answer, Anna spoke up proudly. He almost died. But I didn't let him. The woman's eyes widened. Honey, get him inside. Now. As they stepped into the warmth, Ethan looked once more at the red umbrella dripping on the sidewalk, and for the first time in a long while, he felt alive. He whispered hoarsely, Thank you, Anna. She smiled. Told you. Mama doesn't need it anymore. Warm air hit Ethan's face as the diner door swung shut behind them. The sudden change from freezing rain to heat made his head spin. His legs buckled, and he would have fallen if not for the little girl clutching his sleeve. Sit him down, sweetie, the waitress said, rushing over. Together, they half-carried him to a booth near the back, next to the humming radiator. Ethan collapsed against the seat, gasping for air. His skin was clammy, his lips pale. The waitress looked him over and muttered, Good Lord, he's burning up. She dashed behind the counter for towels. Anna climbed into the seat opposite him, eyes wide and anxious. Don't close your eyes again, she warned. You scared me when you did that in the park. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. You, you brought me here? She nodded proudly. You said you couldn't walk, so I helped. You're heavy. Despite the dizziness spinning in his skull, he managed a faint smile. Guess I owe you. You do, she said seriously. Hot chocolate and pancakes would be a good start. The waitress returned with a towel and a steaming mug. Drink this, honey. Doctor's probably the next step. But at least warm up first. She looked at Anna. You, his daughter? Anna blinked. No, ma'am. I just found him. The woman hesitated, her eyes flicking to Ethan. You just found her? Something like that, Ethan said weakly. He sipped the coffee, burning his tongue but grateful for the heat. Anna tugged at the sleeve of his soaked jacket. You shaking less now? A little, he admitted. You shouldn't have stayed out there, Anna. It's dangerous. You were there too, she said pointedly. I was, he trailed off, realizing he didn't know how to finish. What could he say that he was running from his own life? She tilted her head. You look sad, she said matter-of-factly. Did somebody die? The directness of the question startled him. No, he said after a pause. At least, not today. She nodded like that answer made perfect sense. Mama died last week, she said softly. The words fell like a quiet weight between them. I'm sorry, Ethan murmured. It's okay, Anna said, though her eyes said otherwise. She said she'd still watch me. Maybe she sent you. You almost died too. The waitress returned, placing a plate of pancakes in front of the girl. Eat up, sweetheart. Anna's face lit up. She hadn't eaten since morning, and the smell of syrup was overwhelming. Ethan watched her tear into the food, syrup sticking to her chin. There was something raw and beautiful about it, so alive, so unconcerned with the world's judgment. You're staring, she said, mouth full. Sorry, he said, chuckling hoarsely. It's just been a long time since I saw someone eat like that. Like what? Like it mattered. She grinned and pushed the plate toward him. You can have some. No thanks. Come on, she said. You saved me from the rain. Other way around, he corrected. You saved me. She shrugged, clearly pleased. Then we're even. He studied her for a long moment. Where do you live, Anna? Her chewing slowed. Nowhere. You mean with a friend? No, she said quietly. Mama and me stayed at the shelter sometimes, but after she went to heaven, they said I couldn't stay without her. The words sliced through him. So you've been on your own? She nodded, stabbing at the last pancake with her fork. It's okay. I know where the warm places are, and the mean people usually don't come out when it rains. Ethan's stomach turned. A child shouldn't have had to learn those words. He reached into his coat pocket and found his wallet, damp but intact. Here, he said, pulling out a few bills. For food. She frowned. I don't take money from strangers. You dragged me out of a seizure, he said. I think that makes us something else. She hesitated, then took the money reluctantly. Fine. But only if you promise not to die tonight. I'll try my best, he said with a tired laugh. The waitress approached again, wiping her hands on her apron. He needs a doctor, she said firmly. There's a clinic 3 blocks away. I can call an ambulance. Ethan shook his head. No hospitals. Sir, please, he interrupted. I just need to rest. The woman sighed but relented. Suit yourself. I'll bring soup. When she walked away, Anna leaned forward. Why don't you like hospitals? Ethan stared into his cup. They remind me of endings. She didn't press further. She simply nodded and wrapped her arms around herself, her small body still damp. The clock above the counter ticked past 9. The diner emptied slowly, leaving only them and the hum of rain against the windows. Ethan's eyelids drooped, exhaustion pulling at him. Don't sleep, Anna said suddenly. What if you stop breathing again? I won't, he murmured. You sure? Mostly. She frowned, slid out of her seat, and came around to sit beside him. Here, she said, handing him the red umbrella. now folded and dripping by her side. Hold it. Why? Because Mama said when you hold something that's been through storms, you remember you can survive them too. He looked at her, speechless. Then he took the umbrella. Your mama was a smart woman. She was, Anna said softly. She used to sing when it rained, said it made the sky feel less alone. The waitress returned with a bowl of soup and placed it in front of Ethan. Eat something, then get that fever looked at. You hear me? He nodded, obediently taking a sip. It burned his tongue again. But the warmth spread through his chest like relief. Anna yawned beside him, her head drooping against his arm. You tired? He asked. A little. You can sleep. I'll stay awake this time. Promise. Promise. Within minutes, her breathing slowed, the soft rhythm of a child finally safe. Ethan sat motionless, the umbrella still in his hands. He could feel her warmth against his side. Fragile but real, he stared at her small face, at the faint smile still playing on her lips, and felt something break open in his chest. She had saved him from the rain, from the silence, from himself. Outside, the storm eased. Inside, a strange peace took its place. He leaned back, whispering almost to himself. Maybe your mama was right, Anna. Maybe the rain really does wash bad things away. The diner lights flickered once. Then everything went still. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. Not in despair this time, but in quiet surrender to something new. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. Ethan woke to the smell of coffee and the faint crackle of a radio somewhere near the counter. Morning light leaked through the diner windows, pale and thin. His head still throbbed, but the fever haze had broken. For a moment, he didn't remember where he was until he felt a small weight against his arm. Anna was still asleep beside him, her cheek pressed against his sleeve, the red umbrella clutched tightly in her hands. He stared at her in silence. There was a faint snore, a soft twitch of her nose, a smudge of syrup still on her chin. Somehow, this tiny stranger had dragged him back from the edge of death. Morning, mister. The waitress's voice startled him. She stood by the booth, holding 2 plates of scrambled eggs and toast. You were out cold for a good while. Kid didn't let me move a muscle till she knew you were breathing. Ethan managed a weak smile. Guess I owe her more than breakfast. Guess you do, the woman said, setting the plates down. She eyed him. You sure you don't want a doctor? Fever that bad can kill a man. I'll be fine, he said automatically. Then softer. Thank you for letting us stay. The waitress nodded, her expression kind but skeptical. Name's Linda. You look like a man who doesn't usually say, thank you. He exhaled, a quiet laugh escaping him. You're not wrong. Anna stirred, rubbing her eyes. Is it morning? Almost, Ethan said. You slept through the thunder. She blinked, looked around, then smiled when she saw the plate in front of her. Real breakfast? Real breakfast, he said, courtesy of Miss Linda. Anna grinned at the woman. Thank you, ma'am. Linda winked. Eat up, sugar. You two look like you've been to hell and back. Ethan watched the girl devour her eggs. Her small hands shook slightly, but she ate with quiet focus, like someone who didn't waste what life gave. He found himself studying every movement, memorizing it. When they finished, he took a long sip of coffee and said, Anna, where were you going last night? Before you found me. She hesitated. Nowhere. Everyone's going somewhere. Not me. He leaned forward. You said you stayed at a shelter. Why not go back? She picked at a crumb on her plate. They said they don't take kids without parents unless there's a paper. What kind of paper? The one that says you belong. Ethan's chest tightened. He knew the kind of paper she meant. A social worker's report, an adoption file, a government signature deciding who deserved a home. Do you have anyone else? Family? She shook her head. Mama's gone. Daddy. He left when I was 3. Said he was going to get money. Never came back. Ethan's jaw clenched. You ever see him again? Nope. She smiled faintly. the kind of smile that hurt to see. But Mama said sometimes God sends new people. People who don't leave. He didn't know what to say to that. The words landed heavy in his chest. When they finished eating, Linda handed him the bill. "Don't worry, the kid's covered. Yours too if you promise not to die in my booth." He managed a real smile this time. "Deal." He slid $100 bill under the coffee mug. Linda's eyebrows lifted. "You sure you're not one of those rich types on TV?" He hesitated. "Used to be." The woman gave a low whistle. "Guess money can't buy common sense. You nearly froze yourself to death in a public park." "Story of my life," he said dryly. Anna tugged on his sleeve. "Can we go now?" "Go where?" he asked. She shrugged. "You said we'd find somewhere warm." He blinked. He didn't remember saying it, but it sounded like something he might have promised in the haze of fever. Right, somewhere warm. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets gleaming like mirrors. Steam rose from the manholes, and people hurried past with their coffees and briefcases. The city had already forgotten the storm. Ethan stepped onto the sidewalk, holding the red umbrella even though the sun was out. Anna walked beside him, small and alert, eyes darting from shop windows to passing dogs. "So," he said after a moment, "where would you like to go first?" She squinted up at him. "You mean today?" "Yes, today. Somewhere with pancakes, and maybe a bed." He chuckled. "That's a tall order." "Tall what?" "Never mind." They walked in silence for a few blocks. His legs were weak, but the air felt cleaner somehow. Maybe it was the fever breaking. Maybe it was her. When they reached the corner, Anna stopped. "Do you live near here?" "Yes," he said cautiously. "Is it big?" He nodded. "Too big for one person." She looked at him with wide eyes. "Then why are you alone?" He didn't answer. How could he explain to a 6-year-old that a house full of glass and marble could still feel like a tomb? She frowned. "Mama said people who live alone get sick in their hearts first." He smiled faintly. "Your mama was very wise." "I know," she said proudly. "So, are we going to your house?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Ethan stopped walking. His instinct said no, absolutely not. Bringing a child home? The scandal alone would feed tabloids for weeks. But when he looked down at her, standing in her too big jacket and broken shoes, he couldn't say no. "Just for a while," he said finally, "until we figure something out." Anna's face lit up. "Really? Really?" She grabbed his hand before he could change his mind. "Okay, but I call dibs on the biggest bed." He laughed, surprised at himself. "We'll see about that." The drive uptown was silent except for the hum of the city. Ethan hailed a cab instead of calling his driver. He wasn't ready for questions. Anna pressed her face to the window, watching skyscrapers flicker by. "You live in the clouds," she whispered. He looked at her reflection in the glass. "Sometimes it feels like it." When they reached his building, the doorman's eyes widened. "Mr. Walker, good morning. Do you, need help with the child?" "No," Ethan said quickly. "She's with me." The elevator ride to the penthouse was silent. Anna's hand stayed tight in his. When the doors opened, the vast marble foyer stretched before them, cold, white, perfect. Anna's mouth fell open. "This place is huge." Ethan tried to see it through her eyes. The grand staircase, the chandelier, the polished floors, it all looked sterile, dead. She took a few steps forward, her wet sneakers squeaking. "It's pretty," she said. "But it's sad." He turned to her, surprised. "Sad?" She nodded. "No pictures, no smell of food, no people laughing." Her words hit harder than any boardroom insult ever had. He crouched down so they were at eye level. "You're not afraid, are you?" She shook her head. "I've been in worse places." Then, after a pause, "Can I see the kitchen?" He smiled despite himself. "Sure." As she wandered ahead, her small figure disappearing down the hallway, Ethan leaned against the doorframe, a strange heaviness in his chest. For the first time, the silence of his home didn't feel empty, it felt waiting. He whispered under his breath, "Maybe she's right, Mom. Maybe I am sick in my heart. In the distance, Anna's voice echoed from the kitchen. Hey, mister. You got any milk? Ethan smiled faintly and called back. Check the fridge. Her laughter filled the hall, light and unguarded, bouncing off the walls like sunlight breaking through clouds. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel so cold. The sound of a refrigerator door opening echoed through the marble kitchen. Anna stood on her tiptoes, peering inside like a tiny detective. You've got water, mustard, and something green that looks scary, she announced. Ethan leaned against the doorway, arms folded, amused, despite himself. That's spinach. It's healthy. She wrinkled her nose. Mama said when people say healthy, it means gross. He chuckled softly. Your mama might have been right. May. The little girl rummaged through the nearly empty fridge again. No milk? No eggs? No snacks? You live here? Or just visit sometimes? Touché, he said dryly, moving toward the counter. I guess I haven't done much cooking lately. Anna turned, squinting at him like a teacher about to scold a student. You need to eat, mister. You'll die if you don't. I'm starting to notice a theme with you, he said. Everything's about not dying. She crossed her arms, serious, because people die too easy. Mama said so. One day they're here, then poof. The word poof hit him harder than it should have. He busied himself filling the kettle with water, just to have something to do. The silence stretched, filled only by the faint hum of the refrigerator. Hey, she said, hopping up onto a bar stool, swinging her legs. What's your name again? Ethan. Ethan what? Walker. Her eyes widened. Wait, like the guy on the news? The one with all the buildings and the shiny cars? He froze for a second, then nodded slowly. That's me. Anna tilted her head, studying him. You don't look like the TV man. Maybe he's just pretending to be me, he said, half joking. She smirked. Then you should tell him to clean your fridge. Ethan laughed, a real, unguarded laugh that startled him. The sound echoed around the high ceilings, bouncing off marble and glass, as if the house had been waiting years to hear it again. Anna grinned. See? You can laugh. Apparently, he said. It's been a while. The kettle began to whistle. He poured hot water over a tea bag and placed the cup in front of her. It's chamomile. Helps you relax. She eyed it suspiciously. It smells like flowers. It is flowers. Ew. Just try it. She took a sip, made a face, and then shrugged. Okay, not that bad. Ethan sat across from her, watching her tiny fingers wrap around the mug. For the first time, the silence between them wasn't heavy, it was comforting. After a moment, she asked, why were you sitting in the rain yesterday? The question landed like a stone in his chest. He looked down at his hands. Because I was tired. Of what? Of pretending everything's fine. Anna thought about that. Mama used to pretend too. She smiled when she was sick so I wouldn't cry. That. He looked up, meeting her gaze. She sounds like she was very brave. She was, Anna said proudly. Then, softer, she died holding my hand. I told her I'd be brave like her. But it's hard. Ethan's throat tightened. I know, he said quietly. She studied him for a moment. You lost somebody too, didn't you? He hesitated, the words catching in his chest. My daughter. Her name was Lily. She was about your age. Anna's expression softened. What happened? There was an accident years ago. He stopped there, the rest too sharp to say out loud. Anna reached across the counter, her small hand resting on his. It hurts, huh? Yes, he said honestly. It still does. She nodded. Then maybe that's why I found you. He blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean? Mama said God sends people who need each other. Maybe he sent me because you needed to remember. The simplicity of her words made something inside him ache and heal all at once. He covered her hand gently with his own. Maybe you're right. They sat like that for a while, the sound of rain dripping from the eaves outside. Eventually, Anna slid off the stool. Can I look around? You got a TV? Maybe a cat? No cat, he said, standing up. But sure, go ahead. Just don't get lost. She ran out of the kitchen, her sneakers squeaking on the polished floors. A minute later, her voice echoed from the hallway. You have 5 bathrooms. Who needs that many? He smiled, shaking his head. Apparently, I thought I did. When he found her again, she was standing in front of a large painting in the living room, an abstract swirl of blues and grays. What's this supposed to be? She asked. Honestly, I don't know. My ex-wife bought it. It looks like a sad ocean, Anna said. Like it's trying to be pretty but forgot how. Ethan stared at the painting, realizing for the first time she was right. You have quite an eye for art. I just tell the truth, she said simply. She turned and walked toward the grand piano in the corner. Her fingers brushed the keys. Can I? Go ahead. She pressed a few keys randomly, the sound bright and uneven. Then she found a soft, simple rhythm, hesitant but lovely. Ethan watched her small back straighten with pride. Mama taught me twinkle, twinkle, she said. She said music keeps the dark away. She was right again, he murmured. When the last note faded, she turned to him. You should play too. I haven't in years. Then it's time. He hesitated, then walked over. He sat beside her and pressed a single key. The sound filled the space, fragile but clear. They played together, nonsense, noise, and melody all mixed, but somehow it worked. For the first time, laughter filled the mansion. Real laughter, not polite or forced. It bounced off every wall, chasing away the ghosts that had lived there too long. When they finally stopped, Anna leaned against him, yawning. This house doesn't feel sad anymore, she said sleepily. It feels like somebody lives here again. Ethan looked around, realizing she was right. The sterile silence had been replaced by warmth, a heartbeat that wasn't there before. He whispered, maybe it finally does. Anna smiled, half asleep. Then I did my job. What job? Making sad people better. He brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. You're doing great at it, kid. She smiled faintly, eyes fluttering shut. Within moments, she was asleep on the piano bench, her head resting against his arm. Ethan sat still, afraid to move. Outside, the rain had stopped completely, the city bathed in morning light. He looked down at her and whispered, Thank you, Anna. In the quiet, the echo of her words from the night before returned to him. You look lonely. He realized she had been right. He had been lonely for far too long. But not anymore. The afternoon sunlight slanted through the tall windows, painting gold streaks across the polished floor. Anna was curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket Ethan had found in the guest room. Her breathing was soft and even, her thumb resting against the frayed handle of the red umbrella lying beside her. Ethan stood at the edge of the living room, phone in hand, staring at Henry Matthews' number on the screen. His oldest friend, his lawyer for 2 decades, the one man who always told him the truth, even when it hurt. He took a deep breath and pressed call. Henry picked up on the second ring. Ethan? Jesus, it's been 2 days. Where the hell have you been? The board's losing their minds. I know, Ethan said quietly. I just needed some air. Air? Henry scoffed. You vanish in the middle of a merger, ignore 20 missed calls, and now you want to talk about air? What's going on? Ethan glanced toward the couch. Anna shifted slightly in her sleep. I found a little girl, he said finally. There was a pause. A what? A girl. She's 6. Alone. Her mother's gone. Gone? Dead, Ethan said flatly. Ethan, Henry said slowly. Please tell me this isn't what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like, Ethan replied. She saved me in the park during the storm. I brought her home. You brought her where? Here, to the house. Henry groaned. Christ, Ethan, you can't do that. You're a public figure. One photograph of a billionaire keeping a strange child in his mansion, and you'll be headline material for every gossip site in America. I don't care, Ethan said, sharper than he intended. She had nowhere else to go. Henry's tone hardened. You care more than anyone I know. You built your whole empire on control, on image. You don't do impulsive. You don't do emotional. Ethan looked again at the sleeping girl. Maybe that's the problem. For a moment, Henry said nothing. Then his voice softened. "What are you planning to do with her?" "I don't know yet," Ethan admitted. "But I can't send her back to the street." "Ethan," Henry sighed, "you need to think. If you want to help her, find donate, call child services, fund a shelter, but don't play father. That's not who you are." "Maybe it's who I should have been," Ethan said quietly. There was silence on the line. Then Henry said, "You lost Lily, Ethan. You don't need another heartbreak." The name hit him like a slap. Lily, his daughter, gone in a car crash at 7 years old. Her laughter still haunted the hallways of his mind. He closed his eyes. "I'm already heartbroken, Henry. This girl isn't reopening the wound. She's reminding me I still have one." On the other end, Henry exhaled. "You're serious about this?" "Yes." "All right," Henry said finally. "I'll look into the paperwork, but be careful. The media will twist this into something ugly if they get wind of it." "I'll handle it." "I'll hold you to that," Henry muttered. "And Ethan, be sure you're doing this for her, not for your ghosts." The call ended. Ethan lowered the phone and sat down in the armchair across from Anna. She stirred and blinked her eyes open. "Hey," she murmured sleepily. "You were talking to someone?" "My friend," he said. "His name's Henry. He's kind of grumpy." She smiled faintly. "He sounds like he worries a lot." "He does," Ethan said. "He thinks I make bad decisions." "Is helping someone bad?" she asked. "No," he said. "Not this time." Anna yawned and sat up. "Can I stay here a little longer?" "Just until I find where Mama said the sun feels soft." Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" "She said when it rains too much in your life, you find a place where the sun feels soft again. Maybe that's here." Ethan swallowed hard. "Yeah," he said softly. "Maybe it is." They spent the rest of the afternoon in quiet companionship. Anna explored the rooms, her small footsteps echoing through the house. Ethan watched her from a distance, a strange ache building in his chest, a mix of guilt, awe, and something dangerously close to love. At dinner, he ordered takeout mac and cheese for her, a salad for himself. When the delivery driver arrived, he gave the man $100 tip. Anna's eyes widened. "That's a lot of money for food." "It's not about the food," Ethan said. "Then what's it about?" He paused. "Saying thank you properly." She nodded thoughtfully. "Mama used to say that too. She said people forget. Kindness is a kind of language." Zenon. Later that night, when the city lights shimmered through the windows, Ethan found Anna sitting by the piano again, humming to herself. He sat beside her. "Can't sleep?" "Too quiet," she said. "When Mama was here, she'd sing until I closed my eyes." "Can you sing?" He chuckled softly. "Not well." "Then just hum," she said. He hesitated, then began to hum a melody. He barely remembered something Lily used to dance to when she was little. Anna leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "You're good at this," she murmured. "At what?" "Being somebody's dad." The words pierced straight through him. He froze, his throat tightening. "I'm not," he said quietly. She looked up, half asleep. "You could be." When she finally drifted off again, Ethan sat there for a long time, staring at the darkened city skyline. Her words looped in his mind. "You could be." He rose slowly, pulled a blanket over her, and stepped onto the balcony. The cold air hit his face, but it felt cleaner somehow. Below him, New York buzzed with life cars, lights, ambition, but for once, none of it mattered. He took out his phone again and typed a message to Henry. "File whatever papers you need. I'm keeping her safe until further notice." He hit send. Inside, Anna murmured in her sleep, clutching the red umbrella to her chest. Ethan looked up at the night sky, whispering to no one in particular, "I won't fail her." Not this time. The city's wind carried his words away, but he felt them settle deep within him, a vow, unspoken yet final. The following morning, light filtered through the tall windows, slicing through the soft haze of dust that had gathered on untouched furniture. The mansion, once a shrine to success, now felt alive again, faintly, tentatively, as if remembering how to breathe. Ethan stood in the kitchen, watching coffee drip into a cup, still half expecting silence to reclaim the house. But instead, he heard humming. It came from down the hall, light, airy, and slightly off-key. He followed the sound to find Anna sitting cross-legged on the floor near the grand piano, brushing her doll's hair with a silver spoon she'd found in the drawer. The doll was a stuffed bunny wearing one of Ethan's old socks as a dress. "Morning," Ethan said softly. Anna looked up, beaming. "Morning. I made her a dress. She's fancy now." He smiled despite himself. "She looks beautiful. You think so?" "I do." Anna's face brightened with pride. "I named her Lila. Like your daughter." Ethan froze, the warmth in his chest suddenly twisting into something sharp. "You remember that?" She nodded. "You said it last night. When you hummed. You said her name." He sat on the edge of the piano bench, his voice low. "Yeah. Lila was very special." She's in heaven too?" He nodded slowly. "Yes." Anna thought for a moment. "Then maybe she and Mama are friends now." The innocence of it broke something open inside him. "Maybe they are," he said quietly. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The house was still, bathed in golden morning light. Then Anna's stomach growled loudly, breaking the silence. Ethan chuckled. "Breakfast, huh?" "Yeah," she said, sheepish. "But no more flower tea." "Noted." He went into the kitchen and began rummaging through cabinets. "We should probably get groceries. You can't survive on takeout forever." "I like pizza," Anna called from the other room. "Everyone likes pizza, but you need real food too." "Pizza's real food." He laughed. "You'll fit right in." An hour later, they stood inside a small grocery store on Madison Avenue. Ethan pushed the cart while Anna pointed at everything colorful she saw. "Can we get this? And this? Ooh, marshmallows. Rel." He eyed the growing pile in the cart. "You're worse than a shareholder with free money." "What's a shareholder?" "Someone who thinks they own everything." "Oh," she said with mock seriousness. "Then I'm definitely that." As they reached the checkout line, a woman in a tailored coat looked at them curiously. Her gaze lingered on Anna, then on Ethan. "She's adorable," she said, smiling. "Your granddaughter?" Ethan froze for half a second. Anna blinked up at him. "She's my friend," he said finally. The woman raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow but said nothing else. As they left, Anna tugged on his sleeve. "You didn't tell her the truth." He sighed. "It's complicated. Mama said telling the truth is only hard for people who have secrets." He glanced down at her. "You're too wise for 6. She shrugged. "Mama said that too." When they returned home, Anna helped unpack the groceries, or tried to. She dropped an orange, chased it halfway across the kitchen, and laughed when it rolled under the table. Ethan crouched down, retrieving it. "Careful. We don't want a fruit casualty." "What's that?" "Never mind," he said with a grin. After they finished, he found her in the living room again, standing by the giant window that overlooked the city. She was quiet now, her small reflection framed by the skyline. "Ethan?" she asked softly. "Yes? Why do people look so tiny from up here?" "Because we're far away." She turned, her brow furrowing. "But if we're far away, how do we hear them?" He walked over, crouching beside her. "We don't. That's the problem." She stared at him for a moment. "I think you were lonely before I came." He smiled faintly. "You think?" She nodded with childlike certainty. "Now you're not." Ethan's chest tightened. "No," he said quietly. "Now I'm not." The day stretched gently. They watched cartoons, ate cereal for lunch, and laughed when Anna insisted on using chopsticks for her spaghetti because it felt fancy. But by evening, the weight of reality began to creep back in. Henry's words echoed in Ethan's mind. "You can't keep her forever." As Anna played with the bunny in the corner, he stepped out to the balcony, his phone buzzing in his pocket. It was Henry again. He hesitated before answering. "Ethan, I filed the paperwork," Henry said without preamble. "Temporary guardianship, pending state review. You'll need a home inspection and psychological evaluation. And, Of course, public relations will need to be managed. Ethan sighed. Just tell me what I need to do. Tell the truth, Henry said bluntly. If this leaks, tell it all. Don't spin it. Don't hide her. She's not a headline. Ethan snapped. Neither was Lily, Henry said gently. But people made her one. The world doesn't care about privacy when it smells emotion. Ethan gripped the railing. This isn't about saving face, Henry. This is about doing the right thing. Then do it all the way. Henry replied. Not halfway. Either you take responsibility for this child, or you don't. There's no middle ground. The line went silent for a moment before Ethan said, I already made my choice. When he walked back inside, Anna was sitting on the couch, hugging the red umbrella. She looked small again, too small for the enormity of the house, the city, the world. Ethan, she said softly. Yes? Can I stay here forever? His throat tightened. I don't know, sweetheart. She looked down. Mama said when people say, I don't know, it usually means no. He crouched beside her. Then I'll try to make it mean yes. Her eyes lit up. Just for a second. Before she yawned. Promise? He hesitated, then nodded. Promise. Minutes later, she was asleep again, curled up on the couch, the red umbrella tucked beneath her like a talisman. Ethan watched her for a long time, the glow of the city lights reflected in her soft curls. For years, this house had been filled with nothing but echoes. Now it carried the sound of breathing fragile, real, alive. He whispered to himself, maybe this is what forever feels like, just choosing not to leave. Outside, the wind brushed against the windows, soft and steady, as if the world itself had paused to listen. The next morning, sunlight poured into the living room like honey. The city beyond the window buzzed awake, but inside the mansion there was only stillness broken by the faint sound of footsteps padding across the marble floor. Anna appeared, wearing one of Ethan's oversized shirts that hung down to her knees. Her hair stuck out in every direction. Your house doesn't know how to sleep, she declared. Ethan looked up from the kitchen table, half smiling. He'd been staring into his coffee for the past 10 minutes, lost in thought. What do you mean it doesn't sleep? It's too quiet, she said, climbing onto a chair. When a house is happy, it creaks and hums. When it's sad, it just waits. He blinked at her, amused and unsettled all at once. And what does it do now? She tilted her head thoughtfully. It's thinking. He chuckled, shaking his head. You're something else, Anna. I know, she said, grinning proudly. He poured her a glass of milk and slid a plate of toast across the table. Breakfast of champions. Anna took a bite, chewing seriously. Do you always eat like this? Like what? Like someone who forgot how. He froze for a second before answering. Maybe I did forget. You should remember, she said matter-of-factly. Food's happy if you eat it right. He laughed quietly. I'll try harder next time. She smiled, satisfied, and turned her attention to the big window overlooking the city. It's so high up. People look like toys. Does anyone wave to you from down there? No, he said. People like me don't usually get waves. That's sad. He didn't disagree. After breakfast, Anna explored again, opening drawers, peeking behind doors, leaving a trail of tiny fingerprints wherever she went. Ethan followed, watching her curiosity fill the cold spaces of the house, like light spreading into dark corners. When they reached his office, she stopped abruptly. The room was sleek and intimidating. All black glass and steel. A wall of awards and photos faced the desk, magazine covers, charity banquets, corporate dinners. In every picture, Ethan wore the same perfect smile that didn't reach his eyes. Anna stared at the photos for a long time. You don't look like you, she said finally. He raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? You're smiling, but your eyes look tired, like you're pretending to be someone else. He swallowed, glancing at the framed photo of him shaking hands with the mayor. That's probably true. Why pretend? She asked. He sighed. Because sometimes pretending is easier than explaining. Anna frowned. Mama said, lies make you sick inside. He looked down at her, startled. Your mama said that? She said when people lie, It's because they're scared no one will love the truth. He didn't answer. Instead, he sat on the edge of his desk, staring out the window at the skyline that had once felt like victory and now looked hollow. Anna climbed onto his chair, spinning it slowly. So what's this room for? Work, he said automatically, where I make decisions. Important ones? Supposedly. She stopped spinning. Like deciding to help me? He met her gaze. That's the most important one I've made in a long time. Her eyes brightened. Then this room's not so bad. A chime sounded from his phone. He glanced at it, a message from Henry. Child Services wants to meet. Today. Noon. Ethan's stomach tightened. He typed back. Set it up. Anna was peering out the window again. You look worried. Just thinking, he said. About the people on your phone? He smiled faintly. Something like that. She hopped off the chair. You think too much. Mama said people who think too much forget to laugh. He raised an eyebrow. And you think I forgot? I haven't heard you laugh today. He smirked. I laughed at breakfast. That was a tiny laugh, not a real one. He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. And what's a real laugh? The kind that makes your eyes close and your heart sound funny. Ethan smiled slowly. I'll keep that in mind. She grinned, satisfied. You should practice. When noon arrived, Henry showed up at the penthouse, dressed in a dark suit and carrying a thick folder. You look better, he said, stepping inside. No more fever? I'm fine, Ethan replied. This is Anna. Henry crouched down to her level. Hello there. You must be the brave girl who saved my friend. Anna tilted her head. You're the grumpy man from the phone. Henry blinked, then burst out laughing. She's not wrong. Ethan smirked. Told you. Henry straightened, his expression turning serious again. They're sending a social worker this afternoon. We need your story straight. No gaps, no confusion, just honesty. I can do that, Ethan said. Henry's eyes softened. Ethan. You sure about this? Once this starts, there's no hiding it. Ethan looked at Anna, now spinning slowly on the office chair again, humming to herself. I've hidden too much already. All right then, Henry said, clapping a hand on his shoulder. Let's make sure we do it right. When Henry left, Ethan sat beside Anna again. We're having visitors today. Visitors? Someone needs to meet you, to make sure you're okay. She frowned. Am I not okay? You are, he said gently. But they don't know that yet. She thought for a moment. Should I tell them you almost died? He choked on a laugh. Maybe skip that part. But it's true. I know, he said, grinning. Still, let's keep it simple. She giggled. Fine. I'll tell them you make gross tea. Perfect. As the afternoon light shifted, Ethan walked through the house, noticing things he hadn't before: the way sunlight hit the staircase, the faint scuffs on the walls, the echo of tiny footsteps. The mansion wasn't quiet anymore. It had learned her rhythm. At 4 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Anna rushed to answer it. A woman stood there, mid-50s, calm eyes, clipboard in hand. Mr. Walker? Yes. I'm Mrs. Harper from Child Services. Anna peeked out from behind him. Hi, she said cheerfully. The woman smiled. You must be Anna. I've heard quite a story about you. Which one? Anna asked innocently. The part where he almost died, or the part where I fixed his house? Mrs. Harper blinked in surprise, then laughed. Maybe both. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. This was going to be a long day, but as the social worker stepped inside, Anna slipped her small hand into his. It was warm, firm, trusting, and in that simple touch, Ethan realized something quietly, powerfully true. He wasn't pretending anymore. Not about her, not about himself, not about the kind of man he wanted to be. And for the first time, the great empty mansion finally felt like home. Mrs. Harper, the social worker, was polite but precise, the kind of woman who measured truth by tone, not words. She sat across from Ethan in the living room, legs crossed neatly, pen poised over her clipboard. The house gleamed under the afternoon light, but no polish could hide its emptiness. Anna sat beside Ethan, her feet dangling off the couch, swinging nervously. She clutched her red umbrella as if it were a shield. Mrs. Harper smiled gently. "So, Mr. Walker, you found Anna in Central Park?" "Yes," Ethan said. "It was raining. She offered me her umbrella." The woman raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "That's unusual." Ethan's gaze softened as he looked at the child beside him. "She's an unusual girl," Anna beamed. "He almost died," she blurted out proudly. "He was shaking, so I helped him." "Anna," Ethan said quietly. "We talked about that. But it's true," she insisted, turning to Mrs. Harper. "He couldn't breathe, so I stayed." "Mama said you never leave people when they're broken." Mrs. Harper smiled warmly. "Your mama sounds very kind." "She was," Anna said softly, eyes lowering. "She's in heaven now." The woman nodded slowly, jotting notes. "And you've been alone since she passed?" Anna nodded. "The shelter said I needed a paper." "I didn't have one." Ethan leaned forward. "She's been on her own for a week." Mrs. Harper's eyes flicked to him. "And you took her home immediately?" "Yes. It didn't feel right leaving her on the street." "Mr. Walker," she said gently, "you understand how that might look to others, don't you?" He met her gaze evenly. "I'm aware. She scribbled something down, then looked up. "I appreciate your honesty. But before the state considers temporary guardianship, you'll need to pass a home evaluation. I'll be frank, it's not easy for someone in your position." "My position?" Ethan repeated. She hesitated. "You're well-known, wealthy, and men of your stature don't usually bring home children from the street. The system gets cautious about that." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm not a stereotype, Mrs. Harper." "No," she said softly. "But the public doesn't know that." At that moment, the front door opened, and Henry walked in crisp suit, briefcase in hand, face already carrying the weight of legal caution. "Afternoon, everyone," he said, forcing a smile. "I hope I'm not too late." Mrs. Harper stood. "Just in time, actually. We were discussing next steps." Henry extended a hand. "Henry Matthews. I represent Mr. Walker." The woman shook it firmly. "Good. You'll want to know this isn't a standard case. The press already monitors Mr. Walker's movements." I know," Henry said dryly. "They'd film him brushing his teeth if they could." Mrs. Harper smiled faintly. "Then you understand why this has to be handled delicately. Until we confirm all paperwork, Anna can't be considered in his legal care." "Meaning?" Ethan asked. "Meaning," Henry said, finishing for her. "If someone calls the police and says you kidnapped her, they'd technically be right." Anna's eyes widened. "Kidnapped? But I came with him." Mrs. Harper reached over gently. "No one's saying you did anything wrong, sweetheart. We just need to make sure you're safe." Ethan's voice hardened. "She's safer here than anywhere else." "I don't doubt that," Mrs. Harper said, closing her folder. "But the law doesn't move on feelings. I'll file a temporary report. You'll be under observation for 72 hours. After that, we'll determine if Anna can stay." When she left, the air felt heavier. The front door clicked shut, and silence settled like a storm cloud. Anna looked up. "Did we do something bad?" Ethan forced a smile. "No, kiddo. Grown-ups just like to make everything complicated." Henry sighed, dropping his briefcase on the table. "Ethan, this could get messy. If anyone leaks this, it'll explode. You know how your investors are one headline about billionaire hides orphan in mansion, and they'll pull funding just to protect their image. I'm not running a charity case for publicity, Henry." "I know that," Henry said, lowering his voice. "But the world doesn't." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "So what? I send her away to keep the shareholders happy?" Henry hesitated. "If that's what it takes to save your company, then maybe it's not worth saving," Ethan snapped. Anna's voice interrupted, small but steady. "You're fighting because of me." Both men turned. She stood there, holding her umbrella close to her chest. You don't have to. I can leave. Ethan crouched down in front of her immediately. No. You're not going anywhere. Her eyes glistened. I don't want to make trouble. You're not trouble, he said firmly. You're the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. Henry rubbed his temple. Ethan, be careful what you say. The state will record every word if this goes to court. Ethan looked up sharply. Then they can record this, she's staying. I'm not walking away. Henry sighed deeply, muttering something about heart over logic. Fine. But if you're doing this, you'll need to face the press. Make it official before the tabloids do. I will, Ethan said. When the time's right. Sooner than later, Henry warned. Once people know she's here, they'll start asking who her father is. Ethan frowned. You think there's a chance? Henry hesitated. There's always a chance. The agency will search for next of kin. If someone shows up claiming rights. Ethan didn't let him finish. Then they'll have to go through me. Henry gave him a long look. That's not how law works, Ethan. It's how my heart works. For a moment, Henry just stared at him, then shook his head. A hint of reluctant admiration softening his tone. You always did have a dangerous kind of conviction. I'm not losing another child, Henry. Not again. Anna reached out and took Ethan's hand. You're not alone anymore, she said quietly. Ethan squeezed her hand gently, voice rough. Neither are you. That night, after Henry left, Ethan found Anna sitting on the couch, staring out the window at the city lights. She looked small against the endless skyline. You okay? He asked. She nodded. The lady with the clipboard was nice. But she looked sad when she said I might have to leave. She's just doing her job. Do people's jobs make them sad sometimes? I sat beside her. More than you'd think. She leaned against him. If they take me away, can you still visit? He looked down at her, his throat tight. I'm not letting that happen. Anna smiled faintly, half believing him. Mama said some promises are too big for words. Maybe this is one of those. Ethan exhaled slowly, brushing a curl from her forehead. Maybe it is. Outside, the city pulsed with life horns, lights, the restless heartbeat of New York. But inside that vast house, there was only the quiet bond between a broken man and the little girl who was somehow stitching his soul back together. For the first time in years, Ethan wasn't thinking about headlines, mergers, or money. He was thinking about something he hadn't dared to in a long time, what it meant to truly belong. By the next morning, Ethan's face was everywhere. His phone began to buzz long before dawn. Texts, calls, news alerts, all echoing the same story. Billionaire Ethan Walker shelters homeless black child. Someone had leaked it. He stood by the window, jaw tight, the cold light of the city barely touching the sleepless exhaustion beneath his eyes. Anna was still curled up on the couch, clutching her red umbrella like a stuffed toy. Her innocence was the only quiet thing left in the world. Henry's voice crackled through the speakerphone. It's out, Ethan. Every major outlet has it. They're calling it the Park Angel story. Some stations are painting you like a saint. Others think you've lost your mind. I don't care what they think, Ethan said flatly. You should, Henry snapped. Your board's meeting in 2 hours. They want to know if this situation will become a liability. Ethan exhaled, pinching the bridge of his nose. She's not a liability, Henry. She's a child. I know that, Henry said, softer now. But they don't. They see headlines, investors, risk. Ethan turned toward the sleeping girl. They'll have to see her the way I do. There was a pause. Then Henry said quietly, Be careful, my friend. The same media that lifts you up in the morning will bury you by nightfall. When Ethan ended the call, Anna stirred, rubbing her eyes. Are you mad at the phone again? He smiled faintly. Something like that. Phones always tell bad news, she said, yawning. Mama used to say that's why God made people to tell the good kind. Ethan's chest tightened. You might be right. She blinked up at him. Did I do something wrong? Is that why people are talking? He knelt beside her. No, sweetheart. You did everything right. People just like to talk. when they don't understand something. She frowned. Then maybe we should tell them the truth. Ethan hesitated. You think so? She nodded. If you tell them the truth first, they can't make up their own. He couldn't help smiling at that. You'd make a good lawyer. I'd rather be a singer, she said simply. He laughed softly, brushing her hair aside. Maybe you'll be both. By noon, reporters were camped outside the building. The doorman looked harassed. They're everywhere, Mr. Walker. TV vans, microphones, the works. Someone even tried to bribe security for your floor number. Let them wait, Ethan said. They'll get their story soon enough. He walked back inside, mind already forming a plan. Henry called again. Ethan, please tell me you're not thinking what I think you're thinking. I'm thinking I'm tired of other people writing my story for me, Ethan said. I'm holding a press conference tonight. Henry groaned. You'll be crucified if you say the wrong word. Then I'll make sure every word is right. When the sun set, the lobby of the Walker Tower was lit with cameras and flashes. Dozens of journalists filled the marble hall. Microphones raised like weapons. Ethan stepped to the podium wearing a dark suit. His expression steady, but his pulse racing. Behind him stood Henry, arms crossed, and beside him to everyone's surprise was Anna, holding her red umbrella. The crowd erupted. Questions flew like arrows. Mr. Walker, are you legally adopting this child? Did you know her before the storm? Are you using her story to rebuild your public image after the merger scandal? Ethan raised a hand. The noise died down. I didn't plan any of this, he began. His voice was calm but heavy with truth. I met Anna during the storm last week. She was 6 years old, alone, and she saved my life. The room went silent. He looked down at Anna, who smiled shyly up at him, then back at the crowd. I didn't take her home out of pity. I did it because it was right. Because no child should face the world alone. A reporter near the front called out, Mr. Walker, are you saying you'll keep her? Ethan didn't hesitate. I'm saying she already has a home. Cameras flashed wildly. Henry's hand went to his forehead. Another reporter shouted, Do you understand what this means for your company? For your investors? Ethan nodded. It means they'll know who they're dealing with, not just a man who builds towers, but one who finally remembered why he built them. To shelter people, not profits. For a moment, there was silence. Then murmurs rippled through the crowd, softer now. Uncertain, Anna tugged his sleeve. Can I say something? She whispered. Ethan bent down, adjusting the mic for her. Go ahead. The crowd chuckled at the sight of the tiny girl standing on tiptoe to reach the microphone. She cleared her throat. Hi. My name's Anna. I gave him my umbrella because he looked sad. Mama said people who look sad need someone to stand in the rain with them. The room fell completely still. She smiled shyly. Now he's not sad anymore. There were no follow-up questions after that, just the sound of clicking cameras and the quiet hum of humanity rediscovering its heart. Later, back in the penthouse, Ethan sat on the couch while Anna lay with her head in his lap, watching the city lights shimmer. Henry stood by the window, shaking his head in disbelief. You just rewrote your public image in 10 minutes. I wasn't trying to, Ethan said softly. I just told the truth. Henry gave a wry smile. You always did underestimate what honesty can do. Anna looked up. Did we win? Ethan smiled, brushing a curl from her forehead. I think we did. Henry chuckled. You're trending #1 worldwide, for whatever that's worth. Ethan raised an eyebrow. What are they calling it now? The Miracle in the Rain. He looked down at Anna. That sounds about right. Henry packed up his briefcase, lingering by the door. You should know, though not everyone's celebrating. Someone's asking questions about Anna's father. Ethan's expression darkened. Meaning? Meaning, Henry said slowly. Someone filed a claim this afternoon. A man claiming to be her biological dad. The air went cold. Ethan's voice was low, dangerous. Who? Name's Marcus Reed, lives upstate. Says he's got proof. Ethan looked down at the sleeping girl, her small hand still gripping the red umbrella. The faint rise and fall of her chest was the only thing grounding him. I'm not giving her up, he said quietly. Henry sighed. You may not have a choice. Ethan's eyes hardened. Then I'll make one. Outside, the flash of a camera lit the night sky like lightning, the world hungry for the next chapter. But for Ethan, this story had stopped being about headlines. Now, it was war. The next morning began with a knock on the penthouse door, sharp, deliberate, impatient. Ethan was already awake, pacing the kitchen. He'd barely slept, the name Marcus Reed looping in his mind like a bad song. Henry arrived first, briefcase in one hand, expression grim. "He's here," he said. Ethan's stomach tightened. "Already?" "Brought his lawyer," Henry added. "And a reporter from the Herald. He wants this public." Before Ethan could respond, Anna appeared in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. "Who's here?" Ethan forced a smile. "Just some people we need to talk to, sweetheart." "Why don't you go wait in the den?" She frowned. "Did I do something wrong?" He crouched in front of her. "No, Anna, you didn't. I just need to handle something." "One." She nodded reluctantly and patted away, still clutching her red umbrella. Moments later, Henry opened the door. Marcus Reed stood there, mid-30s, tall, sharp eyes, wearing a worn leather jacket that didn't quite fit his frame. His lawyer, a woman in her 40s, followed behind him. "Mr. Walker," Marcus said with a cold smile. "Nice place you've got here. Guess the rain hits different up high." Ethan didn't rise to the bait. "You must be Mr. Reed." "That's right, and I'm here for my daughter." Henry stepped between them. "Mr. Reed, let's start with facts. You filed a claim of paternity. Do you have documentation?" Marcus nodded toward his lawyer, who produced a thin file and handed it over. "DNA test from 2 years ago." Before her mama disappeared, Ethan scanned the papers, jaw tightening. The name Anna Reed was printed at the top. "If this is legitimate," Henry said carefully, "you'll need a court hearing. Until then, the child stays in temporary guardianship with Mr. Walker." Marcus laughed harshly. "Temporary? She's mine. You think money lets you pick up kids like strays?" Ethan's voice was low and steady. "I think leaving your daughter alone for years disqualifies you from moral lectures." The air in the room shifted. Marcus's jaw clenched. "You don't know what happened. Her mother ran off. I looked for them. She kept Anna from me." Funny," Ethan said. "Because according to Child Services, no one came forward when the mother died." Marcus's expression flickered, just for a second. "I didn't know she was dead. Convenient timing to show up now," Henry murmured. The lawyer cut in. "Gentlemen, please. My client isn't here to fight. He's here to reclaim his family." Ethan turned to her. "Then why bring a reporter?" Marcus smirked. "Because truth needs witnesses." The doorbell rang again, the doorman escorting a thin man with a camera. The journalist's badge swung from his neck. "Mr. Walker, Marcus Reed claims you unlawfully detained his daughter. Do you have a statement?" Henry hissed, "Don't say anything," but Ethan didn't listen. He looked straight into the lens. "My only statement is that Anna deserves safety and love. Whatever happens next, that's all I care about." The reporter nodded, already typing into his phone. "Fair enough. We'll print both sides." When he left, the room was thick with tension. Marcus stepped closer. "You think you can out-talk me, rich man? You can't love her more than I do. You don't even know her." Ethan's eyes hardened. "I know she sings when she's scared. I know she won't sleep without her umbrella. I know she likes her milk warm, not cold. How much more do you want to know?" For a heartbeat, Marcus faltered, his mouth opening, then closing again. "I want her home," he said finally. Voice rougher now. Ethan's tone softened, but his words didn't. "Then prove to her you deserve that, not to me." "To her." Marcus looked away, his jaw twitching. Henry stepped in, breaking the silence. "We'll take this through legal channels. Mr. Reed, until the court rules, you'll have supervised visitation only." Marcus sneered. "You think you're going to tell me when I can see my own kid?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Henry said. "Until the law says otherwise." Marcus took a slow step forward, close enough that Ethan could smell the bitterness on his breath. You think money makes you a better man? No, Ethan said evenly, but showing up when it matters does. Marcus's face darkened, but before he could answer, a small voice interrupted from the hallway. Ethan? Everyone turned. Anna stood there, half hidden behind the doorframe, clutching her umbrella. Her eyes were wide, confused. Who's that? She whispered. Ethan's heart clenched. Anna, this is… Marcus cut in. Anna. It's me, Daddy. The word hit like thunder. Anna froze. Her fingers tightened around the umbrella handle. Daddy? Marcus smiled awkwardly, stepping closer. Yeah, baby. It's me. I've been looking for you. She looked between him and Ethan, unsure, frightened. But you weren't there when Mama got sick. Marcus's face twitched. I didn't know, sweetheart. If I had, I would have come. What? Ethan stood silently, every instinct screaming to protect her. Anna's voice trembled. Why now? Marcus crouched, forcing a smile. Because now I know where you are. We can be together again. Like before. But I don't remember before, she whispered. He tried to reach for her hand, but she stepped back, clutching the umbrella tighter. Ethan spoke quietly. It's okay, Anna. You don't have to decide anything right now. She looked up at him, eyes glistening. Are you mad at me? Never, he said. Marcus straightened, frustration boiling beneath the surface. You poisoned her against me already, didn't you? Ethan's expression stayed calm, but his voice dropped low. No one has to poison the truth, Mr. Reed. It speaks for itself. Henry stepped forward. That's enough. We'll arrange a meeting with Child Services tomorrow. Until then, this conversation is over. Marcus hesitated, glaring at Ethan one last time before storming out. His lawyer followed, tight-lipped. When the door shut, silence filled the penthouse. Anna stood still, tears beginning to fall. He said he's my daddy. But why does it hurt? Ethan knelt beside her, pulling her gently into his arms. Because sometimes the truth hurts before it heals. She buried her face in his chest. I don't want to go with him. He swallowed hard, his voice barely steady. Then we'll fight, Anna. I promise. We'll fight. Her small hand clutched his shirt tightly. You always keep your promises, right? He looked out the window, the city's lights reflecting in his eyes like fire. This one. I will. That night, long after Anna fell asleep, Ethan stood alone on the balcony. Below, the city pulsed with noise and life, but inside, there was only resolve. He wasn't the man who built walls anymore. He was the one ready to break them for her, and he knew Marcus Reed wasn't the kind of man to give up quietly. Morning light fell cold and white through the tall windows, slicing the penthouse into long, quiet shadows. Ethan sat at the kitchen counter, untouched coffee cooling beside him. He had spent the entire night replaying Marcus Reed's words in his head, "She's my daughter." Every syllable crawled beneath his skin like a curse. Anna was still asleep in the guest room, her tiny frame hidden beneath the thick blanket. Every few minutes, Ethan glanced toward the hallway to make sure she was still there, still safe. The knock came at 8 a.m., not sharp and angry like Marcus's the day before, but firm, official. Henry entered, his expression grim. Behind him was Mrs. Harper, the social worker, carrying a clipboard and wearing the kind of cautious sympathy that only meant bad news. "Mr. Walker," she began softly, "I'm afraid we need to discuss Anna's case." Ethan gestured toward the living room. "I figured this was coming." Henry closed the door behind them, lowering his voice. "Marcus Reed filed for immediate custody hearing. He claims you unlawfully held his daughter for personal reasons. It's moving faster than we expected." Ethan's jaw tightened. "He's playing it for headlines." Mrs. Harper nodded reluctantly. "He's already done 3 interviews this morning. He's painting himself as a desperate father fighting a billionaire who took his child." Ethan's laugh was short, bitter. "And people believe that? People believe whatever makes the story easier to swallow," Henry said. Mrs. Harper sat across from him. "The court has ordered a preliminary review. Until they decide, Anna remains in temporary care. But, Ethan, she hesitated. There's pressure to move her to a neutral facility until the decision is made. He froze. You mean a foster home? She nodded slowly. Just for now. It's standard procedure. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. She's been through enough. I'm not letting strangers take her again. Mrs. Harper's eyes softened. I understand, Mr. Walker. But the system doesn't bend easily, not even for men with skyscrapers named after them. Before he could answer, a soft voice came from the hallway. Why are you yelling? Anna stood there, hair messy, rubbing her eyes. She looked small, half lost in the doorway. Ethan immediately knelt down. Hey. We're just talking, kiddo. Go back to bed, okay? She shook her head. You look scared. His throat tightened, just tired. Mrs. Harper rose slowly. Anna, sweetheart. We're figuring out what's best for you. Anna's eyes narrowed slightly. Best means staying with Ethan. Henry gave her a sad smile. You're a smart one. She walked straight up to Mrs. Harper, chin lifted. If you take me away, who'll make him laugh? He doesn't laugh much, you know. Mrs. Harper hesitated, visibly moved. I know, dear, but we need to make sure everything is fair. Anna crossed her arms. Fair doesn't mean good. The room fell silent. Ethan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Why don't you go draw something for me? I'll be there soon. She sighed but obeyed, heading back toward the den. The faint sound of crayon scraping paper soon followed. When she was out of earshot, Henry exhaled. She's a force of nature. Ethan's voice was low, deliberate. They're not taking her. Mrs. Harper met his gaze. You can fight it in court. But if the judge sees you as impulsive, it'll hurt your case. Then help me, Ethan said. Tell the court what you've seen here. Tell them she's safe, that she's loved. The woman hesitated, torn between duty and empathy. I'll do what I can, but Marcus Reed has one advantage you don't. What's that? He has blood. Ethan turned away, his voice breaking just enough to betray the crack beneath his composure. Blood doesn't make you a father. Showing up does. Henry stepped forward, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. Then we'll prove that. The following day was chaos. Reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, shouting questions as Ethan and Henry pushed their way inside. Flashbulbs exploded, voices collided. One reporter yelled, Mr. Walker, is it true you're using the girl to fix your image after last year's scandal? Ethan didn't answer, but when another shouted, what makes you think you deserve her more than her real father? He stopped, turned, and said clearly, because I didn't walk away. Inside the courtroom, Marcus sat at the opposite table, his lawyer whispering furiously into his ear. He looked cleaner today, pressed shirt, combed hair, the picture of redemption. Anna sat with Mrs. Harper, eyes darting between the two men. When she caught Ethan's gaze, she smiled faintly, a silent signal that she still trusted him. Judge Reynolds, a gray-haired man with tired eyes, entered the room. We're here to discuss temporary custody of minor Anna Reed. Both parties will have the opportunity to speak. Marcus went first. He painted himself as a victim, a father denied the chance to raise his child, betrayed by circumstance and poverty. He spoke of long nights searching for her mother, of bad luck and heartbreak. His voice cracked perfectly at the right moments. Then it was Ethan's turn. He stood, every inch the composed CEO, but his words came from a place rawer than any boardroom could hold. When I met Anna, he began, I was a man drowning. She pulled me out of the rain, literally and otherwise. I didn't bring her home because it made me look good. I did it because no one else did, because when I looked at her, I saw the same pain I'd been running from my whole life. The courtroom was silent. Even Marcus's lawyer stopped writing. She deserves stability, Ethan continued, his voice steady. A home. A future. Not headlines, not uncertainty. I may not share her blood, but I share her fight, and that's what matters. For a long moment, Judge Reynolds said nothing. Then he leaned forward. We'll take a recess before ruling. I want to review the full history of both parties. As the court emptied, Marcus glared across the aisle. You think your money makes you the hero? Ethan met his stare. No, she does. Outside, reporters swarmed again. Anna ran to him, arms outstretched. He lifted her up, holding her close as the flashes went off around them. Did we win? She whispered in his ear. He smiled faintly. Not yet. But we will, right? He kissed the top of her head. We will. Across the street, Marcus watched them from the steps, expression dark and unreadable. His lawyer spoke to him urgently, but he didn't listen. His eyes stayed locked on Ethan and Anna, and the seed of resentment behind them promised this wasn't over. As Ethan placed Anna into the car, he caught sight of his reflection in the tinted glass, not the man who had once lived for profits, but one who now lived for purpose. He whispered to himself, whatever it takes, because this wasn't just a legal fight anymore. It was the fight for a life worth saving, hers and his. Rain fell again that evening, steady and gray, streaking down the glass walls of the penthouse like the sky itself was tired. Ethan stood by the window, hands in his pockets, staring out over the city that once made him feel untouchable. It didn't anymore. Every light below reminded him of the fight waiting for him in the morning, not a boardroom battle this time, but one for a child's heart. Behind him, Anna sat cross-legged on the rug, carefully gluing paper cutouts together. Look, she said proudly, holding up a crude but colorful collage. It's us, you and me and the bunny. Ethan smiled faintly. That's beautiful. She frowned at her work. It's missing something. What's that? A sun, she said softly. Mama said the sun means hope. It always comes back after rain. He crouched beside her, watching her paste a bright yellow circle in the corner. That's perfect, he said. But his voice faltered slightly. Anna looked up, her expression studying him the way only children could. You're scared, she said simply. He blinked. Why do you say that? Because your eyes look the way Mama's did when the doctor said she was sick. He inhaled slowly. I'm not scared for me, Anna. I'm scared for you. Why? You said you'd protect me. And I will, he promised. But sometimes doing what's right costs more than we expect. She tilted her head. Then we'll just pay it. He smiled. If only it were that simple. Before he could say more, the doorbell rang. Henry's voice called from the foyer. It's me. Ethan rose, brushing off his hands. Stay here, okay? Anna nodded, hugging her bunny close. Henry entered, soaked from the rain, his coat dripping onto the marble floor. He looked exhausted. The ruling comes down tomorrow, he said. Judge Reynolds wants to see both of you in person at 9 a.m. Ethan's stomach tightened. Any idea which way it's leaning? Henry hesitated. It's close. The judge sees your sincerity. But Marcus has a case blood. History, public sympathy. The press painted him as the working-class father versus the billionaire rescuer. People love that story. Ethan's jaw clenched. I'm not trying to win a narrative, Henry. I'm trying to save a little girl. Henry sighed. I know. But public opinion bleeds into courtrooms more than anyone admits. What are you saying? I'm saying, Henry said carefully, that you might need to show them who you really are. Not the man on the magazine covers, the one under all that armor. Ethan frowned. You think sincerity will outweigh blood? It has to, Henry said quietly. Because that's all you've got. Ethan turned back toward the living room, watching Anna hum to herself as she taped her picture to the wall. I'm not letting her go. Henry followed his gaze. You'd give up everything for her, wouldn't you? Without blinking, Henry nodded slowly. Then you'd better be ready to prove that. Later that night, when the city quieted, Ethan sat on the couch with a glass of water, staring at the glowing skyline. Anna crept out of her room, dragging her blanket behind her. Can't sleep, she mumbled. He smiled softly. You too? She climbed up beside him. My tummy feels twisty. Mine too. They sat together in silence for a while. She traced little circles on the glass coffee table. If the man says I have to go with my dad, will you be sad? Ethan's throat closed. Yes, he whispered. Then I won't go. He chuckled quietly, the sound raw. It's not that easy. Anna, I'll tell them, she said firmly. I'll tell the man in the black robe that you're my family now. He turned to her, his eyes stinging. You don't know how much that means to me. She leaned against him, yawning. Then you don't have to be scared anymore. He brushed her hair gently, letting the warmth of her small presence remind him why he was fighting. The next morning came too quickly. The sky was heavy with low clouds, the air sharp with the smell of rain. Henry arrived early, tie already crooked, coffee in hand. Ready? Ethan straightened his suit, though his reflection in the mirror looked like a man preparing for war rather than a hearing. As I'll ever be. Oh. Anna stood by the door, wearing a small yellow dress they'd bought the day before. She held her red umbrella like a flag. I'm ready too. Henry smiled gently. You look perfect, young lady. She grinned. You look tired. He laughed. Touché. When they arrived at the courthouse, reporters were waiting again. The crowd parted as Ethan carried Anna up the steps. The flash of cameras followed them all the way inside. Marcus was already there, his lawyer whispering instructions as he adjusted his tie. He looked confident, rehearsed, almost smug. Anna clung to Ethan's arm. He looks mad, she whispered. Just nervous, Ethan lied. Inside the courtroom, Judge Reynolds looked more weary than before. We'll make this brief, he said. I've reviewed both testimonies. Before I give my decision, I'll allow final statements. Marcus went first, his voice trembling with practiced sincerity. Your Honor, I made mistakes, but I'm her father. She's my blood, my legacy. I can give her a real home, not just charity. Ethan stood when the judge nodded toward him. Your Honor, I don't want to take her from anyone. I just want to keep her safe. She's not my charity. She's my reason to breathe again. Maybe I'm not her blood, but I am the man who showed up when no one else did. The judge leaned back, thoughtful. And you understand what this responsibility means? That it's for life? Not until it feels convenient? Ethan's voice didn't waver. I've built a life on convenience, Your Honor. It left me empty. This, he gestured to Anna. This is the first thing that feels real. Anna looked up at him, then at the judge. Can I say something? She asked quietly. Judge Reynolds smiled faintly. Go ahead, young lady. She stepped forward, tiny in the vast courtroom. He's not my dad by blood, she said softly. But he's my family. He didn't leave when it rained. He stayed. The silence that followed was absolute. Judge Reynolds closed his file slowly. This court will take a short recess before the decision. When they left the room, Henry's voice was low. She just might have won your case for you. Ethan looked down at Anna, who was swinging her umbrella like a sword. No, he said quietly. She won it for herself. But across the corridor, Marcus's lawyer was on the phone, voice sharp, urgent. The last words Ethan heard before the door shut made his blood run cold. We've got what we need. If the judge rules against us, we'll take it higher, and we'll make sure the world sees what kind of man Walker really is. Ethan turned to Henry. They're not giving up. Henry's eyes hardened. Neither are we. Outside, thunder rolled again, low and distant, like a warning. The storm wasn't over, it was just changing shape. When the court resumed that afternoon, the room felt heavier than before. The air carried the weight of something unspoken, like the seconds before thunder. Ethan sat beside Henry, hands clasped tightly, while Anna fiddled nervously with the frayed strap of her red umbrella. Judge Reynolds adjusted his glasses, scanning the papers before him. His voice, when it came, was measured and calm. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, the court finds both parties show genuine concern for the welfare of the child, Anna read. However, given the emotional stability and safety demonstrated in the temporary guardianship, custody will, the double doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. A woman rushed in, breathless, soaked from the rain outside. Her hair clung to her face. Her coat dripped onto the marble floor. She looked disoriented, her eyes wild with panic. Henry stood. Ma'am, this is a closed. I have to speak. she shouted, clutching a small envelope to her chest. It's about Anna, the judge frowned. And you are? She hesitated, gasping for air. My name's Melissa Carter. I worked at Street Mary's shelter. I knew her mother. The courtroom buzzed. Marcus turned sharply, his expression flickering from anger to confusion. Judge Reynolds motioned her forward. Miss Carter, you understand you're interrupting a custody ruling? Yes, Your Honor. But you need to see this. She handed the envelope to the bailiff, who passed it up to the bench. Anna's mother, she left something before she died. A letter. It was meant for whoever took care of Anna. Ethan's pulse quickened. Judge Reynolds unfolded the damp pages carefully. His eyes scanned the first lines, and the silence in the room deepened. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed quieter, almost reverent. I'll read it for the record, he said. He adjusted his glasses and began. To whoever finds my little girl, her name is Anna, and she's the light of my life. If I don't make it, please keep her safe. Her father, Marcus Reed, is not fit to raise her. He hurt us both before he left. I can't prove it, but God knows the truth. If someone kind finds her, if someone good, tell her I chose that person. Tell her I prayed for someone who would love her better than I ever could. With love, Grace Carter. The words hung in the air like lightning before a strike. Marcus shot to his feet. That's a lie. She's trying to smear me even in death. Mr. Reed, the judge barked. Sit down. He didn't. That woman was sick. She didn't know what she was saying. This is all a setup. Ethan rose slowly. His voice was low but sharp. You can call her sick, Marcus, but you can't call her a liar. You left them. You let them drown in the rain. Anna's mother saved her life one last time by telling the truth. Marcus's face twisted with rage. You think you can take everything from me? My daughter? My name? You gave those up yourself, Ethan said quietly. Security moved in as Marcus lunged forward, shouting. Henry grabbed Ethan's arm, pulling him back. Don't, Ethan. Let it play out. The bailiffs restrained Marcus as he kept shouting, his voice cracking under fury. You can't buy her love. She's mine. Anna began to cry softly. Ethan knelt beside her, shielding her with his arm. It's okay, sweetheart, he whispered. It's almost over. The judge pounded his gavel. Order. Mr. Reed, you've made yourself very clear. Sit down, or you'll be held in contempt. Marcus finally fell silent, chest heaving, eyes full of venom. Judge Reynolds turned back to the courtroom. Given this new evidence and Mr. Reed's behavior, I am granting full custody to Mr. Ethan Walker, effective immediately. Ethan froze. Your Honor, did you just? Yes, the judge said firmly. You've proven yourself a man of integrity and compassion. This court believes Anna's welfare lies with you. Henry exhaled, his shoulders sagging with relief. Anna's small fingers gripped Ethan's coat tightly. We can stay? She whispered. He smiled, tears threatening to break free. We can stay, Anna. We can stay. Nah. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, the reporters scrambling for their phones. Marcus shouted something as security escorted him out, but his words were drowned by the noise. When the gavel struck one final time, Ethan stood still, holding Anna's hand. The world outside could have ended, and he wouldn't have noticed. Later, as they walked down the courthouse steps into the fresh rain, Anna tilted her umbrella toward him, shielding his head just like that first night. See, she said softly. Mama said rain means a new start. Ethan looked down at her, then up at the storm above them. She was right. Henry followed behind, shaking his head with a smile. You realize you just turned a court case into a parable, right? Ethan laughed, really laughed, deep and unguarded. Maybe that's what the world needs. Anna giggled and skipped ahead, the red umbrella bobbing like a small flag of victory against the gray sky. As they reached the car, Ethan opened the door for her. Home? Home, she said, climbing in. He paused for a moment before getting in, glancing back at the courthouse. The rain blurred its sharp edges, softening the stone into something almost human. Maybe that was what this entire storm had been about, softening what had grown too hard for too long. He looked forward again, started the engine, and smiled to himself as the windshield wipers swept the world clean. Some storms don't destroy. Some storms deliver. The house didn't feel like the same house anymore. The marble floors that once echoed emptiness now carried laughter, the sound of footsteps, and the faint hum of a child's song. For the first time in years, the Walker penthouse wasn't a monument to solitude, it was alive. Ethan stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, attempting something vaguely resembling pancakes. Batter splattered on the counter, smoke rose from the skillet, and Anna giggled uncontrollably from her perch on the stool. "You're burning them again," she squealed. "They're not burned," Ethan protested, flipping a questionable pancake. "They're caramelized." "Caramelized means black?" she teased, covering her mouth to hide her laughter. He grinned. "In my kitchen, it does." Henry entered then, still in his suit but without his usual tension. He stopped at the smell, raising an eyebrow. "Good Lord. What died in here?" Ethan threw him a mock glare. "You're late for breakfast." "Oh." Henry chuckled and sat at the counter. "I figured you'd be having steak and gold dust, not child-sized flapjacks." "Flapjacks," Anna exclaimed proudly. "I helped stir. That explains the structural damage," Henry said dryly, earning a scandalized gasp from her. Ethan slid 2 plates across the counter. "Eat. You've been living on courtroom coffee and sarcasm." Henry cut into his pancake cautiously, then stopped, surprised. "Huh, not bad. Told you," Ethan said. "You didn't make this one, did you?" Anna beamed. "I did." Henry nodded approvingly. "Explains it." Ethan laughed, shaking his head. The air was light, so light it felt almost foreign. After weeks of fear, hearings, and storms, there was finally stillness. When breakfast was over, Anna tugged on Ethan's sleeve. "Can we go outside?" "It's still raining." She smiled. "Then we'll take the umbrella." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, let's go." They walked through Central Park, the same park where it had all begun. The trees dripped softly, their branches heavy with rain. The puddles shimmered like glass. Ethan carried the red umbrella above them both, though Anna insisted on holding the handle too, her small hand gripping his tightly. "You know," she said, splashing in a puddle, "I think Mama can see us." He glanced down at her. "You think so?" "Uh-huh, she's probably laughing because you look funny with an umbrella." He chuckled. "I'll take that." They stopped by the same bench where he had nearly collapsed weeks before the place where she had found him. He looked at it now, wet and ordinary. But it felt sacred somehow. "That's where I saw you," Anna said quietly. He nodded. "That's where my life started again." She smiled, a little shyly. "I think God sent me." Ethan's throat tightened. "I think you're right." They sat for a moment in the soft drizzle, the world moving quietly around them. Joggers passed. Couples walked dogs. But for Ethan, the city noise faded until there was only her small voice and the steady rhythm of rain. "Ethan?" she asked suddenly. "Yes? What happens now?" He thought about that, really thought. "Now, we build something new. Like Legos?" "Exactly like Legos. It might fall sometimes, but we'll keep rebuilding it until it's strong." Anna leaned against his side. "Then I want to build forever." He smiled, wrapping an arm around her. "Then forever it is." That night, back at the penthouse, Henry returned with a folder. "Paperwork," he said, setting it on the counter. "The judge finalized the adoption. It's official, Ethan." Ethan froze, staring at the document like it was something sacred. His name, Ethan Walker, printed beside hers. Anna Walker. For a moment, words failed him. Then he exhaled, the tension of months unraveling all at once. "Thank you, Henry." Henry smiled faintly. "You earned this one, my friend. Every inch of it." He paused before leaving. "What will you do now?" Ethan looked around the apartment, the toys scattered on the floor, the half-dried drawings on the wall, the faint laughter drifting from Anna's room. "I think I'll learn how to live again." Henry's smile deepened. Not a bad plan. When the door closed behind him, Ethan walked quietly to Anna's room. She was fast asleep, the red umbrella propped beside her bed like a guardian. He watched her breathe, small and peaceful, and thought about how far they'd come, two strangers who had found each other under a storm neither of them asked for. He whispered softly, "You saved me, Anna." Her eyes fluttered open slightly, voice drowsy. "I know," he laughed quietly. "Go back to sleep, troublemaker." She smiled in her half-dreaming way. "Good night, Daddy." The word froze him in place, Daddy. It had been years since anyone called him that. He sat beside her bed, his hand resting on the red umbrella, and whispered, "Good night, sweetheart." Outside, the city lights blinked like a living thing, soft and warm against the endless dark. The storm clouds had finally broken, revealing a sky full of quiet stars. Ethan leaned back, listening to her steady breathing. For the first time in forever, the house didn't echo with emptiness. It hummed with life. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Walker didn't feel alone. The storm had not ruined him. It had remade him. For 2 peaceful weeks, the world seemed to exhale. The tabloids moved on to fresher scandals. The board of Walker Industries stopped calling every hour, and Ethan finally learned to make pancakes that weren't a public hazard. He and Anna built routines, morning walks, school applications, bedtime stories that always ended with her falling asleep before the last page. But peace, Ethan knew, was fragile, especially for men like him. That fragility arrived one Friday morning, disguised as an envelope slipped under the penthouse door. No return address. Just his name, printed in clean black letters. Ethan Walker. Henry came by just as Ethan was tearing it open. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Henry said. Ethan's eyes scanned the document, his expression hardening. Marcus Reed filed an appeal. Henry groaned. "He doesn't quit." "No," Ethan said, voice low. "He gets desperate." Zoo. Inside the envelope was a letter from Marcus's new attorney. It accused Ethan of using his wealth to manipulate the court system, claiming the so-called letter from Anna's mother had been fabricated. There was also a photo, grainy but unmistakable, of Ethan and Anna leaving the courthouse under the same umbrella. Someone had written across it in red ink, "This isn't over." Henry swore under his breath. "He's going to the press again." Ethan folded the letter carefully, his voice steady but cold. "Then so am I." Anna appeared in the doorway, her doll clutched in her arms. "What's wrong?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just some grown-up nonsense." She frowned. "Grown-ups always say that before something bad happens." Henry chuckled softly. "You're too sharp for your age." Anna tilted her head. "Mama said if you keep secrets, they grow teeth." Ethan met Henry's eyes. "Then maybe it's time to stop keeping them." That afternoon, Ethan called a press conference not out of fear, but resolve. The media, always hungry, gathered instantly. The Rain Billionaire story had faded, but one hint of scandal brought them swarming again. When the cameras went live, Ethan stood before them, Anna's umbrella resting beside the podium. His voice was calm, deliberate. "You've heard a lot of things about me, some true, some twisted. But the one thing I'll never deny is this. I didn't save Anna. She saved me." He paused, the crowd leaning closer. "I was a man who had everything and nothing. My life looked perfect, but I was drowning in silence. Then one night, in the middle of a storm, a little girl offered me the only thing she had, an umbrella. That act of kindness didn't just keep me dry. It reminded me what humanity feels like." The reporters were quiet, the usual cynicism replaced by something closer to respect. "I'm not here to fight Marcus Reed," Ethan continued. "I'm here to fight for Anna's right to be loved, safe, and seen. If that makes me an enemy, so be it. But I will not apologize for choosing compassion over convenience." When he finished, the room stayed silent for several beats, the kind of silence that meant the story had changed again. That night, back at the penthouse, Henry poured himself a drink. "You just declared war in a suit and tie," he said. "The PR team will hate you, but the country will love you." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then I'll take those odds." He turned toward the window, where Anna was watching raindrops race down the glass. She pressed her fingertip against one droplet, following it as it slid to the bottom. "That one wins," she said proudly. "What wins?" Ethan asked. "The drop that doesn't stop," she said. "Even when it hits another one, it keeps going." Ethan looked at her, his chest tightening with quiet awe. You're full of good metaphors, you know that? She wrinkled her nose. What's a metaphor? It's when something small means something big. Oh, she said, thinking. Then I'm a metaphor too. He smiled. You absolutely are. That night, after Anna went to bed, Ethan couldn't sleep. He stepped out onto the balcony. The wind cold but clean. The city below pulsing like a living thing. He thought about how fragile his victory still was. One appeal, one rumor, one twist away from collapse. He felt the weight of it, the danger of loving something that could still be taken away. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You can't protect her forever. No name, no threat, just a statement. Ethan's jaw tightened. He deleted the message without replying. The next morning, the tension grew thicker. Reporters had camped outside the building again, some holding signs that said, "Justice for Marcus Reed." Others defended Ethan. The city had chosen sides. Henry arrived early, pacing. The court's reviewing the appeal. It could take weeks. Marcus's new lawyer is loud. He's making this about power and privilege. Ethan sighed. Let him. I've stopped hiding, but just as he spoke, the phone rang. The voice on the other end was sharp and familiar. Mrs. Harper. Mr. Walker, she said. I'm afraid I have troubling news. Anna's biological grandparents have come forward. They're supporting Marcus's appeal. Ethan froze. She doesn't even know them. They claim they have a right to know their granddaughter, Mrs. Harper said gently. The court will have to consider it. He felt the air leave his lungs. They abandoned her too. I know, she said quietly. But the law sees blood, not heartbreak. After the call ended, Henry muttered a curse. They're stacking the deck, Ethan. They'll paint you as an intruder in her family's life. Ethan leaned against the window, staring out at the clouds gathering again. Then I'll remind them what family actually means. That evening, Anna came running into his study with her drawing pad. Look, it's our house, and that's you and me and the pancakes. He smiled tiredly. It's perfect. She studied his face. Why do you look like the sky before thunder? He chuckled softly. Because sometimes grown-ups have to fight storms too. She handed him a small paper cutout, a stick figure holding an umbrella. Here, she said. You can borrow mine again. He looked down at it, and for the first time that day, the tightness in his chest loosened. Thank you, Anna. As she skipped away, humming to herself, Ethan looked at the paper umbrella in his hand. It was fragile, uneven, but it carried something stronger than any contract or court ruling belief. He whispered to himself, you can't protect her forever. Maybe not. But I'll protect her today. And tomorrow. And every day after that, until I can't. Outside, lightning flickered across the skyline, the storm returning, as if testing his resolve. But Ethan didn't flinch. He'd survived storms before, and this time, he wasn't standing in the rain alone. The next morning, the city woke to the sound of thunder. It wasn't just a passing drizzle this time, it was a storm that demanded attention, fierce and unrelenting. Rain lashed the windows of the penthouse. Wind howled through the streets below. And somewhere deep inside that chaos, Ethan Walker was preparing for battle again. He stood in front of the mirror, knotting his tie with deliberate precision. Behind him, Anna's reflection appeared, her hair still messy from sleep, the red umbrella clutched in her small hands. Are you going to court again? She asked softly. He nodded. One more time, sweetheart. Because of the people who say I'm not yours? Ethan turned, kneeling to her level. You'll always be mine. No paper can change that. She frowned. Then why do papers matter so much to grown-ups? He smiled sadly. Because some people forgot how to see what's real without them. Anna studied him for a moment, then handed him the umbrella. Take it. You'll need it. He blinked. You'll get wet. She shook her head, serious in the way only a child could be. I'm not scared of rain anymore. You are. The words hit him harder than he expected. He kissed the top of her head. You're braver than anyone I know. Henry arrived minutes later. Soaked and tense. The appeal hearing moved up. They're trying to ambush you with new witnesses. Let them, Ethan said quietly. As the car rolled through the flooded streets, Henry scanned his notes. Marcus's new lawyer is brutal. He'll spin everything, your wealth, your image, even your kindness, as manipulation. They're saying you used your influence to stage that letter from Anna's mother. Ethan looked out the window at the rain streaking past. Let him talk. Truth doesn't need defending, just patience. When they arrived at the courthouse, the lobby was swarming again. Protesters lined the steps, half holding signs that read, "Keep her safe with Walker." Others shouting, "Return Anna to her blood family." Cameras flashed like lightning. The noise was suffocating. Inside, the courtroom was colder than ever. Marcus Reed sat at his table with his new lawyer, a sharp, clean-cut man with a voice like a knife. Beside him were two elderly people, Anna's supposed grandparents. They looked uncertain, weary, but determined. Ethan and Henry took their seats as Judge Reynolds entered, his face drawn from too many long nights and too many storms of his own. We're here to review the petition filed by Marcus Reed, supported by the late Grace Carter's parents, he began. This is an appeal on the court's prior decision granting full custody to Mr. Walker. The lawyer for Marcus stood. Your Honor, we present new evidence questioning the authenticity of the letter that swayed the previous ruling. Furthermore, my clients, Anna's biological grandparents, wish to claim joint custody should the court find Mr. Reed unfit. Henry muttered under his breath. Joint custody, my ass. Ethan didn't speak. His eyes were fixed on the old couple. He didn't hate them, he pitied them. They were chasing guilt, not justice. The lawyer continued, voice rising for the cameras. What we have here is a wealthy man using his resources to rewrite the life of a poor child to turn compassion into possession. That was too much. Ethan stood. Permission to respond, Your Honor. The judge sighed. Briefly. There. Ethan faced the room. His voice was calm, but the undercurrent of conviction carried like thunder. If money could rewrite lives, then Marcus Reed would have rewritten his years ago. If privilege could buy love, this city would be full of perfect families. But love isn't bought, it's built. Day by day. Choice by choice. And I've been choosing her since the night she handed me her umbrella. The gallery murmured. Even the grandparents' eyes softened. Marcus's lawyer smirked. Nice speech, Mr. Walker. But sentiment doesn't change facts. Ethan turned slightly, his gaze cold. You're right. So here's a fact. I was dying in that park. Fever, delirium, maybe worse. A 6-year-old girl saved my life with nothing but kindness. If that's not family, I don't know what is. The room went still. The rain outside hammered harder against the glass. The grandparents exchanged a look, something fragile breaking between them. The grandmother finally spoke, her voice trembling. Grace. Grace always said she prayed for someone to protect Anna, someone good. Marcus's lawyer tried to interrupt, but she raised her hand. We didn't know what kind of man you were, she said to Ethan softly. But now I see it. The judge leaned forward. Are you withdrawing your support of the appeal, Mrs. Carter? Tears shimmered in her eyes. Yes, Your Honor. Grace's letter wasn't forged. It was answered. Marcus jumped up. You don't speak for me. The judge's gavel struck once, sharp and final. Mr. Reed, sit down or I'll have you removed. But Marcus's anger exploded. You all think money makes him better than me? He bought you, all of you. He turned on Ethan, voice breaking. You stole her. You stole my daughter. Ethan didn't raise his voice. You gave her away the day you left her mother in the rain. Security moved in as Marcus lunged forward again. His lawyer grabbed him, whispering furiously, Stop. You're done. Oh, the gavel slammed again. Enough, Judge Reynolds roared. This court reaffirms its prior decision. Custody remains with Ethan Walker. This case is closed. The thunder outside rolled like applause. When it was over, Ethan exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. Henry clapped a hand on his shoulder. You did it. Ethan's gaze drifted toward the door. We did it. In the hallway, the grandparents approached him quietly. The grandmother pressed something into his hand, a small locket. "It was Grace's," she said. "Give it to Anna when she's ready." He nodded, his voice rough. "Thank you." Outside, the rain had eased into a soft drizzle. Anna waited by the car, her umbrella open above her head. When she saw him, she ran forward. "Did the man in the black robe say we can stay?" Ethan knelt, catching her in his arms. "He said you're stuck with me forever." She laughed, the sound brighter than any victory. "Then forever's not long enough." He smiled, holding her close. "I think I agree." As they drove home through the wet streets, Henry leaned back with a sigh. "You know, Ethan, this might be the first storm you didn't just survive. You actually won it." Ethan looked out the window, the city gleaming through the raindrops. "No, Henry. We didn't win against the storm. We won because of it." Back home, Anna hung her umbrella by the door, her old red umbrella, tattered and sacred. "We don't need it tonight," she said, yawning. Ethan smiled. "No, we don't." She ran off to her room, leaving him standing by the doorway. He looked at the umbrella for a long moment, remembering the man he had been and the child who had changed everything. For the first time, he realized the rain no longer frightened him, because the storm had never been punishment. It had been grace in disguise. The days that followed the final hearing felt unreal, quiet, almost sacred. For months, Ethan had lived inside storms, both the kind that soaked the city and the kind that tore through the heart. But now the skies were clear. It was strange how silence could feel louder than thunder. Anna woke earlier than usual that morning, sunlight spilling across her face. She ran barefoot through the hall, her laughter bouncing off the walls. "Ethan, wake up, it's not raining anymore." He blinked awake, still half tangled in the sheets. "You're sure? Not even a drizzle?" "Not even a drop," she said proudly. "You promised we'd go to the zoo when the rain stopped." He groaned, stretching. "I did, didn't I?" "Yup, pancakes first, zoo second, ice cream third." He smiled, shaking his head. "You've got a whole itinerary, huh?" Anna nodded solemnly. "Mama said happy days need schedules, so you don't forget to be happy." That line stuck with him as he made breakfast, her voice, the way she quoted her mother like gospel. Somewhere between flipping pancakes and burning the first batch, Ethan realized how easily she'd brought warmth into a place that used to echo with nothing but his own thoughts. Henry dropped by mid-morning, unannounced as always, holding coffee and a newspaper. "Your approval ratings are through the roof," he said, smirking. "Turns out America loves a redemption story." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Approval ratings? I'm not running for president." Maybe not," Henry said. "But you did something rarer. You reminded people what decency looks like." Anna peeked from behind the counter. "Hi, Mr. Henry. Are you staying for pancakes?" Henry grinned. "If they're edible this time." "Hey," Ethan protested. "They're improving. They're rounder. I'll give you that," Henry teased. Anna giggled. "Mine are the best." "That's true," Henry said, stealing one off her plate. "And I can confirm that quality control passes." For a brief moment, the world was exactly as it should be, light, human, simple. But even peace carries its shadows. That afternoon, Ethan found himself standing by the window again, looking down at the city. His reflection stared back, not the sleek, invincible man he once projected, but someone different. Softer. Real. Anna came up behind him, holding a drawing. "That's you," she said proudly. He looked down. The picture showed two stick figures, one tall, one small, standing under a bright yellow sundae. Between them, in crayon blue letters, she'd written "Safe Forever." He crouched, his throat tightening. "That's beautiful, Anna." "You're crying," she said, concerned. "Just happy tears." She smiled. "Then you're doing it right." Later that evening, the two of them walked to Central Park again. The air was cool, washed clean by days of rain. Birds sang in the trees. Puddles reflected the setting sun like molten gold. They stopped at the bench, their bench now dry and glistening. Ethan sat, and Anna climbed up beside him, swinging her legs. "Do you think the rain's really gone?" she asked quietly. "For now," he said. but it always comes back eventually. Then we'll have the umbrella ready." He smiled. "You really love that umbrella, don't you?" "It's magic," she said confidently. "It makes sad people better." "Oh." He looked at her, his voice low. "It made me better." She reached for his hand, tiny fingers wrapping around his. "Then we'll keep it forever." They watched the sky together, streaks of pink and orange stretching above the city. The world felt fragile, but also infinite. For the first time in a long time, Ethan didn't feel like he was waiting for the next disaster. That night, after Anna had fallen asleep, he walked quietly through the house. The sound of her breathing filled the space where silence used to live. On the wall near her room, her drawings hung in uneven lines. Stick figures, hearts, a red umbrella. The word home, written in wobbly letters. He stood there a long time, taking it all in. Every crayon mark was a chapter of something larger, not just her story, but his. He went out onto the balcony, city lights glittering like a second sky. The air smelled faintly of wet earth and hope. Henry's words came back to him. "You reminded people what decency looks like." Maybe, he thought, that was what all this had been for, not money, not redemption, but remembering that doing right doesn't need an audience. He whispered to the night, "Grace, I kept my promise." Somewhere, far below, a church bell rang. The next morning, the papers called him the Rain Billionaire, turning his story into a symbol of renewal and second chances, but Ethan barely read them. He didn't need headlines to tell him what he already knew. He had built something stronger than any tower. When Anna woke up, she found him making breakfast again, pancakes, this time perfectly golden. "You did it," she said, clapping. "Practice," he said with a grin, "and good coaching." She leaned against him, yawning. "You're my favorite grown-up," he chuckled. "You're my favorite human." Outside, sunlight poured through the windows, golden and soft. The city was waking to a new day, one not defined by storms or headlines, but by the quiet grace of ordinary joy. Anna looked up at him. "Hey, Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart? Can we go dancing in the rain when it comes back?" He smiled, brushing a curl from her forehead. "Absolutely. Next time it rains, we won't hide. We'll dance." And somewhere deep inside him, the broken man who once sat alone on a park bench finally felt whole. The rain hadn't just washed the city clean, it had washed him free. A year passed. The seasons changed, the city kept moving. And life, the quiet, ordinary kind, finally settled into the walls of the Walker home. The red umbrella still hung by the front door. Faded now but whole, like an artifact of the storm that had rewritten two lives. Ethan Walker had become a man of routine, something he'd once sworn he'd never be. Breakfast with Anna, walks to school, late nights helping with homework he didn't understand. Board meetings came and went, stock prices rose and fell. But none of that mattered anymore. His calendar, once filled with power and profit, now revolved around bedtime stories and pancake breakfasts. This morning, he sat at the kitchen counter, reading the letter that had arrived from the court, final confirmation that Anna's adoption was irrevocably closed, permanent in every sense. It wasn't just legal. It was destiny on paper. Anna ran in wearing her favorite yellow raincoat, boots squeaking on the tile. "Daddy, it's raining again." Ethan looked up, smiling. "I noticed. Can we go out? You promised we'd dance next time." He laughed. "You never forget, do you?" "Nope. Mama said promises are like flowers. If you forget to water them, they die." "Then we'd better water this one," he said, rising from his chair. He grabbed the red umbrella, still tattered, still hers, and followed her out into the rain. The street shimmered, the city glowed, and the storm fell soft and forgiving. Anna twirled in the puddles, spinning and laughing, her arms stretched wide. "See? It's not scary anymore," she shouted over the rain. Ethan held the umbrella but barely used it. He was too busy watching her, the light in her eyes, the joy in her movement, the way her small frame filled the world with something far bigger than innocence. She ran back to him, water dripping from her eyelashes. "Dance with me, Daddy." He hesitated, smiling. "You're sure your teacher won't scold me for ruining your boots?" She grabbed his hand, tugging him into the street. "Come on, you promised." Sohei did. For the first time in years, Ethan Walker, the man who once ruled skyscrapers and markets, danced in the rain like a fool. The rhythm wasn't perfect, but it was real. The city blurred around them, the thunder rolled softly overhead, and for a few beautiful minutes, nothing else existed. As they slowed, Anna leaned against him, breathless and grinning. "You're getting good at being happy," she said. He laughed, his heart full. "I had a good teacher." "Me?" she said, pretending to be shocked. "Who else?" They stood there, drenched, surrounded by 1,000 shimmering reflections. The storm didn't wash anything away this time. It blessed it. Later that evening, after warm baths and cocoa, Anna sat curled up on the couch, her head resting on Ethan's shoulder. The rain still whispered against the windows. "Daddy," she said softly, "do you think Mama can see us?" He looked out at the city lights, their glow reflecting in his eyes. "I think she never stopped watching." Anna smiled sleepily. "Then she knows I'm safe." "Yes," he whispered. "She knows." She yawned. "Can I ask something?" "Anything. Why did you sit in the rain that night?" He paused, staring at the red umbrella leaning against the wall. "Because I'd forgotten how to live. But you reminded me." Her eyes fluttered shut, her voice fading into a dream. "Then we both saved each other." Ethan brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, his voice trembling. "Yes, we did." He stayed there long after she fell asleep, listening to the steady rain. In it, he heard echoes of the night she found him, of her mother's letter, of every moment that had carried them here. Then, quietly, he rose and walked to the window. The city below was alive with light, but his reflection showed something new. Peace. He whispered to the night, not for anyone to hear but because it needed saying. "Thank you for sending her." Outside, the storm began to fade. The clouds parted just enough for a small piece of sky to show deep blue, endless, forgiving. He stood there, watching it until the last drop fell, and finally understood something simple and profound. Some storms don't come to break us. They come to deliver the people we were meant to find. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows. Anna came running out of her room, holding the red umbrella like a trophy. "Daddy, look, it stopped raining, but I'm keeping it forever." He laughed. "I think that's fair." She looked at him with that same bright certainty she'd had since the day they met. "Because we never know when someone else might need it, right?" Ethan smiled, his chest full. "Exactly right. Z." She nodded decisively and leaned the umbrella back by the door, perfectly upright waiting, just in case. And as Ethan watched her disappear down the hall, humming softly to herself, he felt a peace he hadn't known was possible. Not the peace of success, or wealth, or the world's approval. The peace of knowing that, at last, the storm had done its work and left behind something beautiful. The story had started with a man in the rain and a little girl with an umbrella, and it ended with sunlight. The story reminds us that sometimes life's greatest storms aren't meant to destroy us, they come to reveal what truly matters. Ethan Walker, a man who had everything except peace, found salvation not in wealth or power, but in the kindness of a 6-year-old girl who had nothing to give but her heart. Through Anna, he learned that love is not about blood or status. It's about showing up when it rains and staying when it's hard. The lesson is simple yet profound. Compassion can rebuild what success cannot. And the smallest act of goodness can change the course of a broken life. True wealth isn't measured in money, but in the lives we touch when we choose love over fear.